Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Youth Man. Today, as you can see, I'm not in my home theater, but I'm in my friend Jonathan's incredible home theater. We're actually up here in Kansas City, Missouri. We have been doing 9 home theater tours in just 4 days. I think this is the 5th one that we've done. We actually have 3 more to do tomorrow. So no, today's the 6th one.
That's right.
We're losing track. There's been so many.
Yeah,
So we've done 6 so far. We've got 3 tomorrow, so that'll be 9 total. So we've got some really cool things I'll be sharing with you when we get back to Florida and I get to edit those videos. But just to give you kind of an idea of how incredible your home theater is, today we started about, what, 5:30?
That's right.
5:30 today. It is now 11:35, and probably, I don't know, 20 minutes ago, people started leaving. So we've been going at it. We've been listening to all kinds of demos, hanging out, eating. Jonathan, I've actually been staying with him over the past couple days. And so, first of all, man, just thanks for so much for opening up your home to me, a stranger, inviting into your home. But man, we've just had a blast checking out these different home theaters. And so my hope is that through these videos that it'll provide just inspiration to you. Maybe you'll see something in Jonathan's room or in Doug's room or whoever, and you'll just find something that you can relate to, or maybe something that you want to try in your home theater. And so Jonathan, man, what we're going to do, we're just going to kind of talk about your room, talk about some of the experiences that I've had over the past couple days, and then the extended period of time today, and really just talk about, like, man, what you have accomplished, and just allow you to share kind of your story of home theater. And so kind of walk us through, like, where are we at in your home, and maybe kind of the size of it.
Sure. So this is a basement room. It's kind of like just at the bottom of the stairs coming down. It's about a 24-foot by 18-foot space. Behind the baffle wall, behind the screen, there's another 8 to 12 foot kind of a mixed storage space back there. So the room would be wider, bigger than it is otherwise. This was just like a general purpose family room before, and kind of converted into a theater space because that's how we would use it better.
Yeah. And so they get a lot of use out of this thing. And so we're going to go around the room and just kind of talk about the gear. But like I said, I want to kind of hear your story of why you chose certain things, or things that you've learned over the years. And we'll even talk about, like, hey, if you could go back and do it all over again, like, what would you change differently? So one of the first things when you come down the theater room, I see, we've got this big screen. So we'll talk about maybe that first. So what size is your screen?
It's a 144-inch CinemaScope screen, and I chose that because I'm limited on the ceiling height. I have 8-foot ceilings and 7-foot-ish drop down for the HVAC. So I wanted as big a screen I could get, like most of the guys you've talked to here.
For sure.
With ceiling limited, that ended up being CinemaScope.
Cool.
We both had the same projector years ago, the Panasonic 8000.
Yeah,
made
man.
it real easy to cycle between 16:9 and
yeah, that automatic
CinemaScope
switching.
was awesome.
And you missed that, right?
I miss it,
I
absolutely.
still miss it, man.
I'd probably buy a projector just on that attribute alone if they'd come out with another one.
Yeah, so what he's talking about is on, you've got a cinema screen. When you're watching 16:9 content, you've actually got to kind of zoom out and kind of reposition. And so we've both set presets for both of those. But the Panasonic was awesome because it would automatically recognize that and switch for you. So you didn't have to grab your remote. You didn't have to worry about. So tonight, prime example, Jonathan's, your daughter's like, hey, Dad, there's another person here. So he would go up and, introduce himself and get them some snacks. And we're down here and we throw a different demo and it's a different aspect ratio. And we're like, oh crap, where's his remote go? But the Panasonic would do that for us, man. So I do miss that. So beautiful big screen. And what are you running as far as projection?
It's an Epson 5040 UB. It's been a great projector for the money.
Absolutely.
I'll just say that. Not
Absolutely.
the best projector out there,
100%.
But a good picture for the money.
Yeah.
It's not so great on HDR, so I remap everything to SDR.
Okay.
I use that through the Panasonic player and MadVR through the PC. And if you're staying away from HDR, it still throws a good enough picture that I'm satisfied with it.
There is nothing that we watched tonight and the other days that we've been in here just kind of demoing that I ever once looked up and went, that's kind of sketchy. You know, it's a beautiful picture. Absolutely. And it's actually a long throw too.
Right.
Like you're at the very back of the room. So I'm kind of
Right.
surprised because
It's well within range. I could make it a little bit, it's got a little bit of tolerance. Not a lot,
Okay.
but you're right.
Yeah.
It is a long throw.
so you would think you would lose a lot of light, but I was really pleasantly surprised. There's, especially because you can make this room pitch black. So by doing that, you've got a beautiful image. So super cool there. So out to the side of that, we've got a lot of acoustic treatments. So kind of walk us through, your acoustic treatment, and we've got some really cool treatments over here. I like those. So
Yeah, I
tell
like
us the
those
story
too.
behind those.
So I started out with just bare walls, like kind of most people do, and after you go to a few different home theaters, you kind of realize that's not any good.
Yeah.
That there's too live a sound, too many reflections.
Sure.
So I went the panel route at first with the OC703 and rock wool, and I tried some of those things, putting them on the wall. I was originally going to do the cool do-it-yourself poster designs you've probably seen, where you can
Yeah.
have movie posters.
Yeah,
on an
Kyle
acoustic
Bliss has
panel.
some of those. He made them.
Can't see on the video, but I made one back there. I was kind of playing with a smaller one, and I
Yeah.
had some big, huge 4-inch thick panels, and I was playing them, and I never really fell in love with that sound. So I tried out the foam,
Yeah.
and as much hate as you see on the forums for
Yeah.
the foam, I personally like the foam better, and so I went with the foam. These are just 3.5-inch dome pieces here, and it almost
are
acts
cool.
like kind of a diffuser, right? Because
Yeah.
in the thickest part of the foam, you got a pretty decent NRC, noise reduction coefficient, or whatever it is.
Sure.
And at the narrow parts there, you're basically on the drywall.
Right.
So you're getting kind of a variance there instead of just a all absorption, no
Sure.
absorption of 6 inches later.
Absolutely.
It does a nice scattering of the sound, so
Yeah.
to speak. And it's really important on that sidewall, which we'll show a little bit later, because my room's asymmetrical,
Correct.
which is not ideal. This isn't a dedicated, purpose-built space, right?
Yeah.
We just moved into a house that had a big basement, chose a big basement on purpose for a home theater, but
Right.
it wasn't purpose-built. That wall's closer than this open area.
Gotcha.
And so even though my measurement mic, my Omni mic, I'd measure all the SPLs, and it all measure out
Mm-hmm.
the same, it may be in my head, maybe not, but I sure felt like that wall was closer and that side was louder. And
Yeah.
sometimes if I was listening to reference level stuff, I'd kind of get like a little bit of a ringing in my right ear and not in my left, and so I was like, I got to figure out something out with that wall.
Gotcha.
That foam fixed it all.
That's
I watch
awesome.
stuff at reference all the time, and I don't have
Yeah.
any problem with that now. And even if you walk up to that wall with that foam, it gets really dead over there, and you can tell it's doing its business. So,
Yeah.
so those who poo-poo on the foam, they just need to maybe have a little bit more experience with it.
All right, so true like transparency. When I first came down your steps and I saw those, honestly, I'm thinking, that's different, because I was kind of that camp that
Sure.
I've just always been told, nah, those aren't going to work.
Sure.
They're not going to absorb the high frequencies. Dude, you don't have any like echo in here, slap echo. They do a really good job. So honestly, I was that dude, and so that definitely made a believer, in me that these can work and those can work. And, it sounds phenomenal in here. It's literally, I remember even Tony, before he left, he basically said, look, dude, your setup is like a 10 out of 10.
And another thing I want to mention about that sidewall is that with the OC703 panels, the 2x4 panels that are so popular, they're really good. You can set up your first reflection points
Yeah.
for the single seat, but what about the seat next to you or the
Yeah.
seat next to that? Their first reflection points are different.
True.
And so if you got drywall there, you're going to have that problem. Well, this eliminates that problem for everyone in every seat here.
Yeah, that's a pretty long deal there.
Exactly. And so I have kind of a tendency to try to tailor it for all the seats. Even the throwaway seat's pretty good against the wall there,
Yeah.
because that absorbs all the reflections right there against your ear.
Sure.
So yeah, I've just found a very good success with that. As far as the ceiling, I have certain Theater Black F tiles. They're commercial black tile that they use in commercial theaters.
Okay.
There's a NRC of 0.7 on those, and they're basically OC703 with kind of like a black felt that's 3% light reflectivity rating.
Right.
And then above that, I have 9 inches of pink fluffy between the joists, which kind of helps dampen.
Interesting.
It's not any double drywall or
Sure.
green glue or anything like that. This isn't a room within a room. It's just a repurposed, rebuilt,
Gotcha.
family room.
Sure.
But it does a good job of dampening the highs. You
Right.
can't contain the bass. they're going to get the bass
you
upstairs.
can't. You cannot contain your bass, bro.
But
That
you're
is
gonna,
for sure.
You're going to eliminate some of the highs, so they don't have to
Yeah.
to hear the whole experience upstairs.
Yeah, for sure. So these are definitely. I mean, I've seen those on Amazon. I'm sure you can pick them up anywhere, but I've never seen any of these. So like, where'd you get those?
There's a place on eBay, and I think Foam Express, if I remember right.
Okay, I'll look it up.
Yeah.
Or yeah, just send it to me, and I'll put it down in the description. That was a guy that you found on on eBay.
I like the looks too. In fact, I wrote him a little note and said, "Hey, I really like what these are done. I
Right.
just want to send you a little picture of
Yeah.
of how they looked." And he, asked if he could use them on his advertising.
Oh,
and
that's
I
cool.
got, that's my picture in the ad now. Which is
That's
kinda fun.
awesome, man.
Yeah.
Very cool. So next thing, let's just kind of talk about the speakers in the room. So, I've seen some pictures you sent to me, and all right, man, we're just being real here, okay?
Sure.
So the first time I saw them, I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I've never seen. Well, I have seen LED lights in speakers, but in all fairness, we usually see that like at Walmart when they got the little boom box, yeah.
Bluetooth things. Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, so I don't know what these are, but these were really different design. I mean, you got, my goodness, there's like 10 or 20.
16 1-inch soft dome tweeters.
Yeah, 16 tweeters. You got 4 mid-range drivers. I mean, that's interesting. And not to mention you've got, 2 here, but every speaker in your setup is the same speaker. So tell us about these speakers, kind of the thought behind that, why you chose those, and
Sure.
and then I can share kind of some of the things that I noticed just from my experience with this, what I heard. Go ahead.
Sure. So there's 13 of these JBL CBT 70J1s. I first heard them in an AMC Prime Theater, and I was blown away by the sound. It was my favorite commercial cinema experience.
Sure.
And at that time, this was back in like 2013 or something, and I thought, man, I really like those. I'm gonna look up what those are. I
Yeah.
looked them up, and they're $1,200 a piece, and I
Ooh,
thought,
okay.
that's out of
Yeah.
my price range.
Because you got to buy like a bunch of them, man. It's like,
I'm talking like $15,000 to. I was like, no,
Sure.
that's not me. So I set an alert on eBay, thinking maybe I can find some used.
right.
And 3 years later, believe it or not, I mean, I watch these things come and go.
Sure.
$800, $700.
Yeah.
Here's there. That's
That's
too
good
much.
price.
Yeah, but more than I wanted to spend. So
Sure.
it turned out there was a guy, and this is probably getting too detailed. There's a guy in Topeka
Okay.
who set up 34 of these in a 5K race. And the reason he did
5K,
a
okay.
5K race, he strung them along the entire race path.
Nice.
And the reason he chose these is because line arrays have kind of a unique property where they lose SPL at distance at half the rate of a traditional speaker.
Okay, so they don't go super far, or they.
They do.
Oh, so they go far because
Right.
they don't.
so
like
a traditional
diminish.
speaker loses
Gotcha.
SPL at 6 dB
Okay.
per doubling of distance.
Okay.
And a line array or a CBT loses at half that rate, 3
Okay.
dB per doubling distance. So basically, you can still be farther away and still get more of the SPL.
Gotcha.
So that was the reason they chose that speaker. And he had 34 of them, and I reached out to him. He was within an hour and a half drive or so from here, and I said,
Yeah.
can I buy 13 of these, and can we negotiate a deal? And he was like, yeah.
Wow.
So I got them for about 500 a piece.
Dang. So you went from $1,200 to $500.
Yeah.
That's a youth man deal. You know that, right?
Yeah, it worked out good.
That's phenomenal.
And so, then the AMC Prime that I'd heard him in first, I stole the idea of the red LED lights,
Yeah.
or any color you want for that matter. It's
Sure.
RGB 50/50 strip.
Yeah.
Just goes along the PCB backing of the tweeter.
Right.
And then you just pick any Alexa controller or Google Home or whatever,
Sure.
whatever kind of device you have, and
Right.
you can control it through that. So yeah, props to AMC for the cool little design choice. It looks cool at
And
night.
I love it. I'll be honest with you, because especially when we're listening to music, you probably don't have the lights on when you're watching a movie, but when you're chilling with your buddies or your family and you're just listening to some tunes, that's a cool ambiance, man. I really love the vibe. I'm a blue guy, you're a red guy, but man, you pick your color. And you had mentioned something too. If you could, you did this a while back, right? If you could redo that part of it, what would you change with
Well,
the LEDs?
I've got some fancier lights now for sure. Mine
Yeah.
are just single color, one stop. The new ones have all kinds of synchronization and patterns, and
Yeah.
you can make them beat to the music and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
And even like gradients.
And
it
they're
could
not
s-
expensive.
It can start from one color and change,
Yeah.
like fade to another
yeah,
color.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool RGB stuff out there,
Yeah.
and it really isn't complicated or expensive either one. You just the
Yeah.
controllers are pretty simple to set up. You just run your line to your hub that's behind the screen in this case, and
Yeah.
wired in Alexa. Alexa, change all the lights to blue. And then they're blue.
Oh, yeah, that's my favorite
There
color.
you go.
But we'll put it back to yours.
No, it's fine. So the reason I chose red is because I do leave the lights on during a movie at 5% brightness.
Okay.
This is 100% brightness.
Yeah.
And 5% with red doesn't destroy your night vision. And so I enjoy visual appeal like anyone does in some cases. So I like having, looking around, seeing the speakers at 5%. It's pretty dim. It doesn't,
So even when
distract.
watching a movie, that's fine.
Yeah,
Okay.
in fact, for all of our demos tonight, it was at 5% brightness. And so,
You know what's interesting? I don't remember that.
right. Well, it doesn't affect the screen, at least maybe
Interesting.
with measuring gear, but not with the human eye.
Well, I mean, that just shows you. I mean, of course, you didn't have the ones behind there, which you can.
Right.
Which that was cool too, because when everything's off, projectors off, even when projectors on, we could see it. Like if you didn't have an image up there, we could see it coming through your screen. So that's a cool effect. I
Right.
did that in my theater, be able to
reveal
show
lighting.
people visually, like, hey, this is what I've got going on behind the screen.
Right.
But those are really, really cool. Now, one thing that I would share, several things that I heard myself in all these demos, ridiculous amount of clarity in these things. I mean, they're super clean, very, very detailed. They weren't bright at all, but they were detailed, and I like detail. The speakers to me that are really laid back and kind of veiled, I just don't like that. I want to hear every pin drop. I want to hear every shotgun shell bouncing off the floor, and yours do that. They reveal that information. But the other thing that's kind of interesting, and you alluded to it, they have a really, to me, a wide dispersion pattern.
Right. It was a design choice. Right.
It's crazy, guy. I'm not kidding you. And Tony and other guys, we all heard the same thing. We could sit here. I could sit here. I even went to the back row because we were all, kind of swapping out, getting everybody the hot seat,
Right.
these primary seats here. But I would move to the very back row, and I'm hanging out with Kyle Bliss and some others and Croson, and we're in the back row, and I'm getting this crazy amount of like immersion even in the back row up against the wall on a bar stool seat. I'm like, I don't get that in my theater room. I'll be honest with you.
Right.
So that is super cool, man. So, and Tony, he was working over on his laptop out kind of, because you got a multi kind of purpose room. You got air hockey over there and a little desk.
Right.
And so he's over there working on some emails. And he's like, dude, I was getting great sound over there. So that's pretty wild, man. And
Right.
like, I guess like you said, those actually travel a long way. So it's going from even here and here and here. So he's got a whole sidewall of information coming at him. So that's pretty incredible.
So line arrays have that unique trait. I mean, that's what they're built to do. It was built as a Navy submarine for sonar work to test on the bottom of the ocean floor. They had to get good information there and back. So
Yeah.
it makes a very broad, uniform signal throughout the room.
Right.
And my experience with line arrays started probably, with the LS6 and LS9 that a guy named Desert Dome off the forums had.
Okay.
I really enjoyed those. And then the next experience that I had was probably these at the AMC Prime that I really, really loved. And then along the way sometime there was a Sela Game Changer that I heard at a blind meet and fell in love with. And it was one of those things where, you just get humbled because I saw that speaker, it had little tiny drivers in it. And it was kind of like laid way back. And it was the meet that we were at was called the Heavy Hitters Meet.
Okay. Yeah, you were telling me about that.
They had some massive speakers there. I mean, like the name brand from all the players and some do-it-yourself monsters.
Yeah.
And then they brought these little Sela Game Changers in there, and they were the small little things, 2-inch drivers. And I thought, why are these even here? And it was a blind shootout.
Right.
And darned if I didn't like the line arrays.
Yeah.
Subjectively,
Sure.
that was my favorite.
Sure.
And I didn't even know, I didn't know what I was picking. That was my favorite.
Right.
So, that kind of surprised me. And then there was I went to Expona a couple of years. Expona had a Parts Express booth. Parts Express run a speaker called and we'll have to cut this and come back, but I think it was called the Epic, and I bought it, so I should know what it was.
Yeah.
Anyway, the speaker, they had them out there. They had a whole pile of speakers. We're talking like probably 20 of their parts, 20 of their speakers in a big pile. These line arrays were out in front of that pile of 20 speakers. And my friend Randy and I were walking by that booth, And I thought, what in the world? Are all those speakers on?
Yeah.
It's such a broad sound right here. Randy and I were exchanging this. Like, we were both trying to figure out, like, what is that sound coming
Right.
from? So I actually walked up. He said, that's probably those line arrays. And I said, no way. Because
Yeah.
there was another one of those, and I'll show you. There's 36 2-inch drivers on that thing.
Okay.
It's like little tiny drivers.
Right.
So I said, no way. I told Randy, no way. I walked up to that pile of speakers, and I was putting my ear on. I'm like, none of these are on.
Yeah.
I walked a couple foot forward, and I walked to the line array, and that was what was playing.
Yep.
And I couldn't believe that it had such a big, powerful sound from those little tiny, skinny
Sure.
line array drivers. In fact, Don Keel was in that event, and he was the one that helped. He's the one that created this technology for the submarine work that the U.S. Navy used.
Right.
And then he partnered with Parts Express to kind of make it into home audio
Right.
stuff. So, in a span of like 18 foot, you could walk, and they were kind of laid out in the middle of the room. They were not against the wall or anything. You could kind of walk with, and I kind of measured it, footpathed it off to
Right.
see. In a very wide area, I couldn't even tell a difference in the way the sound changed. Like it was like it sounded the same no matter where you were walking. I was like, this is ridiculous.
Right.
I can see a real application for this. Now, that's a positive quality.
Sure.
The negative quality perhaps might be that you have this very broad sound, but you don't have that intense, focused image
Sure.
that some people really treasure for like 2-channel listening.
Correct. They want that one spot,
Yeah.
single, this is my primary listening position. Forget you guys.
Right.
But yeah,
You got that.
I get that.
With 2-channel listening, some of the audiophile speakers, you get that focused box, and if you're in that box, it's the world is your oyster. You
Sure.
got a beautiful, very focused, intense sound
Right.
stage, all that stuff. This is more just like sound is from everywhere, and
Yeah.
you can't really source where it's coming from. That's kind of the difference. So
Yeah.
it's a preference thing,
Right.
It's a design choice.
And with this room, like I said, honestly, this is probably one of the most immersive rooms I've ever heard. I mean, like I said, it's completely enveloping, and you're not hearing individual speakers kind of thing.
Right.
It's not like, okay, that's just a direct source, that's the direct source, and I hear that one, I hear that one. It's just kind of there.
Right.
So that was a really, really cool, a lot of that, like the Dolby Atmos demos, and you're hearing these, you hear individual like birds and things like that, or when something's traveling. But when you're having like rain or something, it's like, dude,
just
that's
there.
just
Yeah.
enveloping, man. Absolutely. So I have been very pleased with this. This is not your Walmart speaker, with the
not
the
the
cool
Picnic Bluetooth
LEDs.
speaker.
Yeah. So, but these sound really, really phenomenal. And I was thinking, man, that seems kind of a little close for these big speakers. But another trait of these is if you get really close to them, it's really not any louder than if you and I were sitting here.
Right.
So traditional direct rating speakers, if you get really close, it's really loud. And as you back away, it gets softer and softer and softer.
Right.
And again, me and Kyle were in the back row,
Sitting a foot and a half away from one.
very close to him. And I looked over and I'm like, do you realize you're 2 feet away from this thing?
Right.
He's like, you're right. And we were having a conversation back there.
Right.
So
No, I
it's
mean,
pretty
it's
wild.
true. I can literally walk up to one of these speakers, play it at reference volume, and put my ear against one of the tweeters, and you don't get blown back. And the reason is because that reference level is spread over 16
Correct.
drivers.
Yeah.
So your ear is only touching one. It's a 16th of the sound. If you walk up to, you don't get blown away. And it's especially good for that seat there, the trash seat.
Sure.
It's kind of a throwaway seat.
The trash seat.
It's 3 foot away from that speaker behind it,
Yeah.
and you don't walk away with a sore ear at the end of the movie if you're
Yeah.
watching the reference, because it doesn't blow you out.
Yeah.
So if you have I think if you have a tight room, it's a good choice potentially because you're not just blasting the guy on the end of the row.
Yeah. Super cool, man.
Yeah. Again, there's pluses and minuses
Sure.
to everything, and that we're speaking to their pluses
Yeah.
right now.
And so you got to figure out what works best for you in your setup. And I've always told people, go and listen to as many different styles and brands and figure out what works best for your ears and your own preference. And we were even kind of talking about that earlier, that even in double blind test, mixing and matching speakers, you thought that one speaker was going to be just, it's a no-brainer. I'm going to like that. And you end up liking another one. So, but just listen to as many as you can so you can figure out what your ears prefer.
So Michael and I were talking after we left Kansas City. How could we throw a video up to showcase how the line arrays have a really broad, uniform coverage of sound in the room? Anywhere you sit, back or front,
card table or in the theater seats, it has a really nice symmetrical sound, and that's a complement of the line array design. So he provided me some royalty-free music, and I'm just going to walk around the theater and let you hear for yourself.
So another thing I'd love to talk about, your room has quite a few subwoofers, man.
Sure.
So looking at the front, we got this cool arch, 5 subwoofers up front. We got 3 subwoofers in the back, 18 inches. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so subwoofers are actually what got me into this hobby. I've been in the hobby since probably high school. I bought my first home theater in a box system in high school.
Oh yeah.
Probably like most people,
Absolutely.
or early college type time frame for most people as well.
Yeah.
And just kind of upgraded along the way. My first real sub was an Infinity HPS 1000, which was arguably the best sub that Infinity ever made. It had a bottom firing 15 and 2 passive radiators 15 and 1,000 watt, and I had 2 of those things.
Well, if you got 1,000 watt back then, that's massive.
It was massive, and I don't even know if Infinity makes something like that now. It was quite the sub.
Yeah.
And I had a couple of them, and this was in college. We had a rental house that we had, and there was a pool attached to like a suspended wooden floor, and there was a suspended wooden floor decking to it. I kid you not, those 2 Infinities could make the water in the pool ripple, and that was the coolest party trick in the world.
Oh my
back
goodness,
then.
that's
We had
funny.
those things cranked to the 9s.
Right.
That was a lot of fun. From there, I went to JTR Captivators, which were even a step up.
Yeah.
Significant.
Sure.
I had the Captivator Pros that were 20 hertz tuned, and they were knock your socks off good. I really loved those subs.
Yeah.
Then I went to Sealed, and it took probably, I got 8 of these.
Yeah.
I compared at Direct AB, I had them at the same time, and I was going to, pick my preference.
Yeah.
It took 6 of these to match the JTR,
Mm-hmm.
and 8 put it over the top. So I kept the 8 Sealed, and I sold the JTRs to a buddy who still has them and loves them, and
Yeah.
great subs. And the arrangement that you're talking about,
Yeah.
that's chosen for purpose. I've moved these things all over the room and testing. I have an Omni mic, and I like toy and fiddle and try to make things optimized.
Sure.
I originally tried different variant numbers on the front wall, stacking them, pushing them up against the wall flat. That was kind of the way I originally just had in my head.
Sure,
I'm
it
gonna
makes
try.
sense. Yeah.
Right. I tried all 8 of them up there for one. What I was noticing is if they're in just a straight line, I was getting a frequency response that was very, very clearly like giving me a certain null at a frequency or a mode.
Yes.
Either way, like it was a very similar line that wasn't, it was like something I couldn't fix
Right.
with the EQ
Sure.
because it was a room engagement.
Right.
If I put them in a semicircle, now that's gone. And I got a very nice flat frequency response just by this little trick.
That's interesting. You wouldn't expect that, that because typically you think that even if you rotate subwoofers, they don't make much difference, but they're not necessarily just rotated. They're also different distances
They're slightly
from the
different
wall. So
distances,
I'm wondering if that.
which gets rid of the nulls and the modes,
That's
so
pretty
that
cool.
I have a real flat frequency response range. And you don't even have to have EQ. The only EQ I use on my subs is a shell filter to counteract the sealed roll off. That's
Okay.
natural.
Yeah.
These are not getting a whole lot of boundary gain because behind the baffle wall, as we mentioned, there's the
Sure.
storage
This
space.
kind of extra stuff.
So if you were to take the room as a whole, that actually is maybe a 1/3 point in the room.
Sure.
And these are generally about the same in the back of the room, maybe a 1/3 point. So
Yeah.
I'm not really getting gain, but I have a real nice frequency response that's flat
Yeah.
without messing with it.
Right.
And that works pretty good too.
So pretty good. So what he's saying, or what he's not saying, These things slam, dude.
They're pretty nice.
They slam, but being sealed, they're completely like just clean, super, super clean. And what's nice is you've got everything running into a mini DSP. And what's cool is, of course, you can adjust the levels of those. So not only do we have 5 subs up front, we got 3 what they call near field subs behind us.
Right.
The garbage seat doesn't have one.
Not a near field.
So, but we've got a subwoofer here, subwoofer here, subwoofer here.
Right.
And so, honestly, that was part of like my favorite part. It was so tight. I mean, some people think, oh man, an 18-inch sub can't be tight. That's baloney. You put enough power to it, and it can be super clean. And like we've all talked, you spend a ton of time in calibration.
Right.
Even we were out doing a home theater tour this morning, and you're like, hey guys, I'm going to pass on this one so that I can stay in here and tweak this stuff just a little bit more. And there was, I forgot who was sitting here. Oh, it was Kyle Bliss. And he even asked me, he's like, man, I was just here 2 days ago, and this sounds and feels better. He's like, did he make any changes since then? I said, yeah.
Right.
He was spending some time in today. So whatever you did today, even Kyle noticed it. And he didn't know you were messing with it. So
Wow, that's
you spent
good.
a ton of time doing that.
I did.
So we've got great, I mean, this thing can slam. And I guess I want to kind of address this. A lot of times when I share pictures online or mention that this person has this many subs, they're like, that's overkill. You hear that word a lot.
Sure.
And in our brains, it's like, that is overkill. I mean, who the heck needs, here's the thing. People say, man, I've got a single 12 that rattles the dishes on my wall or whatever, and my china and my glasses. And that's true. It can do that.
Sure.
But I'm telling you guys, this is on next level. And yes, it can just slam you in the chest. But it also, when we were listening just to some light, chill music and we're at a volume where we can have a conversation, that's still just got that nice solid thump, and it's clean and there's no distortion, whether we're at reference volume or whether we're just kind of just chilling. But these add that extra punch, that tactile bass that I really like. I wish I had the space behind mine. I just don't. Right. But then not only do we have that, you also got some other stuff that kind of adds a little kick. Tell us about that.
Right. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about the near field first before we go on to the other things.
Sure.
I've played with near field subs for a long time, since probably 2014. There's a couple things, I think we mentioned it in the video the other night. They need to be close, and they need to be basically within the driver's diameter to your back.
So 18 inches, your back needs to be no more than 18 inches.
Right. Cool. Generally speaking, and it sounds like you're just making that up, but it's not. I mean, if you move them back 6 inches, you would lose a lot of the impact, and it's pretty wild.
Sure.
So this came about sort of when we were messing with transducers years ago in our Kansas City group. I have some Infinity Kappa Perfect 12s from my car audio days. Yeah. And I was like, all right, I want more feedback. I want more tactile feedback. I had the caps up front. They're awesome for providing bass, but I want some more feel in my chair. Sure. So I hook up some of those Infinity Kappa Perfects, and I got them on some stands, and they're right in the back of the chair. And I'm like calling all my buddies. I'm like, this is the ticket, man. You guys got to try this. Yeah. And the problem was that as soon as you made your chair start moving forward and back, you'd lose it. So I mean, either you'd have to mount it on the back of the chair like we saw the other day. Yeah, we've seen some guys do that. That's insane. Or it wouldn't work with a small driver is what it amounted to. You either stick it on there. Like, go ahead, show it. I mean, that's the ticket. That's you put it right there, you're gonna feel it. Just firing 4 inches away in your back. Yeah. We're laughing because it's an experience, that's for sure. But this is just super, super tight, and that's what I like about it, is that it doesn't take away from the movie. You would almost think, man, having a subwoofer right behind your back, that's going to be so distracting. No, I'm telling you, man, when you've got, I'm thinking like Unbroken. Sure. The scene where they're flying the planes and stuff is blowing up, and man, just the big Gatling gun, not Gatling gun, but that big gun on the 50 cal on the front. Dude, it's like ba 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 ba, and you're feeling it in your back, and it's just that adds to the immersiveness, I think, of the movie. Certainly. Pulls you into the movie. Now, like with anything, you could crank those up too much. You can crank these up too much. Sure. And then it becomes a distraction. But that's where calibration and a volume knob. Sure. That
you know, in level adjustment, that's where that comes into play.
Sure.
And you've just done a great job in doing that. So we've got eight subwoofers.
Right.
We've got
Boss.
some other stuff. Now, Boss,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
is that?
So I have a variation of Boss underneath these things,
Yeah.
just kind of in pursuit of just getting the feel right. And I want to pause for a second to say one of the nicest compliments I got tonight was somebody who was sitting in these chairs said, "I thought you said you had transducers," and I said, "I do.
Yeah.
They're on." And he's like, "Oh, I thought that was just the sub energy." And I said, "You know, no, it's you'll feel them more in the movies, but the fact that they're on and you didn't feel them tells me I got them dialed in just right."
Correct.
And that's very important with tactile transducers. And we're talking down to like 1/100 of a second.
Yeah.
When you're doing like 0.21 versus 0.22 at whatever second interval it is,
Yeah.
you can notice a difference. And that doesn't even sound like it's reasonable, but it's the way it is.
Yeah.
With the audio, with the subwoofers, you have a little bit more flexibility. But with that mechanical butt kicker and that Boss that's physically mounted to the chair,
Sure.
it's got to be on or
Yeah.
it's not quite right.
Right.
And
Yeah, you notice it.
You kind of get like a kick or like a, if I got multiple different iterations of feel in here,
Yeah.
and you're getting multiple beats instead of one
Yeah.
impact.
Right.
And
So you want them
you
in
play
sync.
drums a little bit. You
Yeah.
kind of know what there's an impact point, a
That
hit,
is correct.
and you want that to match.
Yeah.
So and it's not hard to do. It's fun to do. You listen
Yeah.
to music and you try to, you're going up and down with a
Sure.
millisecond time on the minute of speed and dialing it in, and
Yeah.
I enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
So underneath here, there's a variation of the Boss platform. It's a open air 12-inch driver, shallow mount because I didn't have space for a full-size mount under
Sure.
there. It doesn't produce any sound because it's open air. So if you've ever hooked up a subwoofer without a box,
Yeah,
it just doesn't
it just-
make anything.
yeah,
It
it
just
just
flaps
moves, yeah.
around. Well, there's a board under here that I mounted the 12-inch driver into, and that flapping around translates to a natural feel, just like the driver behind you. It's not a mechanical feel. It's a very natural feel. Now, the butt kickers can be not a natural feel if you have it wrong. But
That
if
is
you have
correct.
it dialed in right, it's like, it feels like it just adds a nice low-end wobble.
Yep.
I have real soft, flexible 20 Durometa feet on this thing by Hudson Hi-Fi.
Right.
And that gives these chairs kind of a little bit
Yeah.
of wobble.
Sure.
Not crazy, but enough to make it have a little bit more kind of bounce.
Gotcha.
So that, that 50 cal that you're talking about,
Yeah.
it kind of adds to that little
Yeah.
feel of a little bit of
Just a
vertical.
movement, yeah.
Yeah. The combination of all of them working together is really nice. And it's not just only about volume. Like Michael was talking about, why do you have 18s? I can turn 6 of these off.
Yeah.
And you'd think there's still a lot of volume, and that's true.
Yeah.
But there's also the aspect of, hey, every seat in here is getting a uniform sound because there's more drivers coming in the area. The Harman Kardon white papers say like infinite subwoofers is the best if you want a solid
Wow.
frequency response,
Okay.
because every one you add returns that frequency response more to the native frequency response of the sub.
Gotcha.
And by their formulas, like if you were just surrounded by nothing but subs, you lived in a cube of subs, you would have the natural native frequency response of the
Interesting.
subwoofer driver.
Yeah.
So there's not such a thing as too many subs.
And we've always told people, okay, one sub's okay, but you're going to get a great sound, and I'm going to be in a null. And then they may get a good sound, and then they're going to be in null.
Right.
And I've physically heard that in my room before. You can walk 2 feet, 1 foot, and it goes from boom, real hard,
Right.
to nothing.
All right, and the other thing on here is the butt kicker advances. And those things can be turned up to where they will shake you out of the chair
Yeah.
if you want them like
Sure.
that. It's too much.
Yeah.
So I like them to have just a little bit of the extra wobble that you might get if you were on a wooden floor, maybe
Okay.
even a little bit touch more, but not outrageous. I mean, you can watch on YouTube people shaking stuff off the table next to it, or the chair fabric's going crazy.
Yeah.
That's not for me.
Sure.
I like it to feel subtle and natural, and then have more extension than you would have otherwise just from
Right.
acoustic energy alone.
Sure. And I think it's like anything, Jonathan, that when you overdo it, when you do too much, then it pulls you out of the movie. If you say, for instance, some people say, well, I want to hear more of my Atmos. And so they boost the Atmos, channels really high. So then every time you're watching a movie, oh man, I heard that. That just took you out of the movie,
Sure.
And I think you're doing the same thing with all of this. And again, you've done an incredible job blending this all together so that it's one seamless bass punch, bass tactile feel, so that not one thing is kind of taking, you know, center stage kind of deal.
Right.
It's just, you don't really, I don't know, is it these that are I'm feeling the most? Is it that? Is it this? They're just seamlessly blending together. And that's pretty cool. I would have thought, okay, you only need subwoofers or you only need butt kickers, you know, but you've kind of blended all of these and they all kind of do something different.
Right. They all add something.
Yeah.
So Tony and I were kind of in here with Nick visiting and playing a song that had a bunch of 11 hertz frequencies
Sure.
in it, kind of a dubstep type music. We turn on the Boss, you get a little bit different feel than you get from the near field, and you get a little bit different from the feel of the butt kicker, but they're all complementary.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a cohesive experience, a uniform experience that all collaborate and make it better.
Sure. So we've got, you know, subwoofers, we've got speakers, and I don't know if we mentioned it. How many speakers do you have in here?
Yeah, 13.
Okay.
So there's 9 on the bed. We got
Right.
front wides, and then there's 4 on the ceiling in a 0.4 configuration.
Sure.
And they're all crossed over at 90 hertz.
Okay.
I like that.
That's interesting.
because-
That's higher than what even THX recommends, but it sounds phenomenal.
right. I ran OmniMic sweeps. You go 60. I can't do 70. I can do 60, 90, 100, 120. It doesn't
Yeah.
make much difference.
Okay.
It just changes where it. In my head, I subjectively like 90 hertz. Always have.
Okay. Sure.
So that's what I use. I use it on my last set of speakers too.
Yeah.
I like having that unified crossover point because one thing I noticed, I used to have kind of smaller speakers on the ceiling. In fact, they're still here. I never took them out.
Yeah, I see 'em.
little Sony N walls
Yeah.
up there when I first moved in.
Yeah.
So those things couldn't. I put them at like 120, 150 so they didn't blow up.
Yeah.
Right?
Because they
And,
can't handle much.
No, they can't.
Right.
And what would happen since I run my bass hot? I do about 9 dB hot.
Yeah.
When the crossover is sitting up at 150 and it's 70 somewhere else, at the time I think I had JTR front soundstage.
Right.
So 70 in the front soundstage for the 228 HTs and 150 up here or something. When an object, an Atmos, moved around the room and it hit that speaker up there, all of a sudden my subs were coming to life more, and that was weird.
Yeah.
Right? And if you experiment with it a little bit, you can tell. So if you have disparate crossovers and there's a significant difference between them,
Okay.
and you're running your subs hot,
Sure.
and you have an object moving around the room, when it hits the speaker with a higher crossover, you get
Interesting.
too much bass.
Gotcha.
The hotter you have your subs, the more apparent that is. So a unified crossover fixes that.
So keeping the same crossover through all speakers.
And having the same speaker everywhere makes for
Sure.
seamless object
my
panning,
goodness.
right? Because
Sure.
it's not going to change timbre or
Yep.
tone or anything. It's the same speaker.
Yeah. And I've always been, not always, I didn't see the value of like an LCR, left, center, right, 3 identical speakers, whether it's 3 bookshelves, 3 towers, 3 monitor style, MTM kind of speakers. But once I did that, I'm like, I get it now. Seamless sound up front. But I don't have that seamless sound that you do. This thing goes seamless this way and this way. So, man, yeah, if you can do identical speakers, absolutely. Firm believer of that. So we got all these speakers, all these subwoofers. What about like power? Like what are we running inside your rack? Kind of take us through that and
So yeah,
what are we, powering these bad boys?
I ran a couple dedicated 20 amp lines, and that's been sufficient for what I have needed. I've only thrown the breaker once.
I've never thrown, I have a single 20 amp.
Yeah,
And I've got 418s, but
they'll pass more current than they're rated for temporarily. And for bass hits, like on a bass drum or something,
Yeah.
that's plenty. It'll pass like 4 times rated amount for a split time.
sure.
I don't know the numbers on that, but it's posted on an ABS form. I've
Yeah.
read it before. I got 4 iNuke 6000 amps, and I had to limit them to about 1,600 watts per channel. Otherwise, they would power cycle.
Okay.
So this is just, through trial and error, I'd get into a bass heavy scene and my amps would power cycle.
Sure.
Well,
Which is like trip or
yeah,
shut
they
down.
just shut down
Okay.
and reboot, and it'd be graceful, and but also you just be without bass.
Right.
So I figured out it's a voltage limiter, but a watt limiter. You program it how many watts you want it to have.
Okay.
Because Behringer makes a good product, but it's on the cheaper end of the scale. It's not a Crown or anything else, right?
Sure.
For subs.
Yeah.
So they're a limit to 1,600 watts a channel, and they never reset. When they hit that 1,600 watts, they don't try to go any louder. It doesn't pull more than it can actually handle.
Sure.
And then so each driver in here is getting 1,600 watts. and they're rated for 2,000. It's good enough. I might be losing a dB maybe on what the headroom is capable of.
Sure.
I got a Denon X6700H.
Okay.
I do not, back to the speakers, I do not run any EQ.
That's interesting because I didn't know that until earlier. You mentioned that. So you don't have Odyssey on?
No.
You're not running any kind of, like, this is just native
raw.
room response.
Right. So again, the line arrays are designed to put the same sound everywhere. And if you like the sound raw, which I do,
Yeah.
then you're just getting it raw.
Yeah.
And I don't need to EQ for a seat. In fact, the guys want to know what Odyssey sound like. So I have a preset 1 for Odyssey, just the way it sets it up.
Yeah.
And I have a preset 2, which is Odyssey off.
Right.
And I was letting them switch back and forth, and Tony and Nick were both like, I can't even tell the difference.
Wow.
I said, well, that's kind of the intent of the line arrays, is that it doesn't need to be adjusted because it's putting the same sound everywhere and it's uniform.
Nice.
So yeah, I don't need EQ. Another thing I've kind of learned over the years is when you EQ very specifically, very granularly for a single seat,
Yeah.
it's to the detriment of the other seats in your theater.
Yeah.
So let's say I need 5 dB at 76 hertz in this seat. I put 5 dB on there.
Right.
Do you need 5 dB at 76 hertz? You might be in a mode.
Right.
You might already have an extra 5 dB. Now you're at 10 dB hot at
Gotcha.
76 hertz.
I got you.
And so I try to, it's just an experience thing.
Sure.
Years of doing this. I don't tell people to use real sharp EQ settings, where you have like
Right,
real
the
stupid
big
thing.
peak,
Never
yeah.
use that.
Yeah.
And the more general, like use 1/6 smoothing after you kind of make sure you don't have any phase issues to do your EQ. If you're going to even apply EQ. The only EQ I use in here is EQ on the subs. It's to combat, and I think we already talked about it a little bit, but to combat the natural roll off of sealed, because I'm not getting any boundary gain. I'm
Sure.
in the third points of the room, basically.
Correct.
So I have a filter in to kind of make it flat. And it's just a generic filter that's applied to all the subs the same way.
Right.
And that works. I don't, if I EQ'd for one seat, like I say, it would be detriment to the seat back there, to the seat over there, or, just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, for sure, man. So as far as like other equipment in there, so we got some amplifier. So the Behringer, like you said, that's kind of on the more budget friendly. I mean, do you think that maybe, if you spent twice as much, do you think you're going to get like twice the value or twice the performance?
I don't think I would. I
Yeah.
think if I before I smoked the drivers, I could put another 400 watts in them.
Yeah.
I mean, when I've played like low, let's say I'm doing like 5 hertz test tone or 10 hertz test tone, just playing around to see what they can do.
Sure.
I've gotten to the point where I've smelled voice coils on this before. That means you're making them hot.
Yeah,
right?
that's
It's
not good.
not a good smell.
No, that's not
So, they'll do what they need to do. I might be losing a dB, and I'm saving thousands of dollars.
Sure.
Because at the time, these were a third of the price of a name brand pro audio amp.
Sure.
And they work.
Yeah, and that's the key is that you don't have to have, is there anything wrong with buying a real high-end amplifier? No, absolutely. If you got the budget, go for it. But don't be scared to go with I guess what they call a pro audio amplifier.
Right.
And that's actually, a lot of guys use that with, now these are these DIY subs? Because I don't know if we mentioned,
Well, I don't
like
think we
what
talked about 'em.
what are they?
So these are Dayton Audio UM1822.
Okay.
It's kind of a forum darling on ABS.
Yeah.
They've been around. I was one of the first people to get them as far as on the forums because Josh Ritchie from Database.
Yeah.
If anyone's familiar with that.
Sure.
It's an objective review site. It's awesome. JTR uses a lot of reviews there. HSU, SVS, all the guys.
Sure.
All the name brand players that
Yeah.
are there. Anyway, Josh measured these. I'd met him in a meet before. I trusted him. He, he said these were good drivers, and so I had bought these cabinets from a guy in St. Louis who had 16 of them. I bought 8 of them from him, and I just filled them. Put polyfill in there
Nice.
and loaded them up and enjoyed them.
Well, honestly, in looking at them, they look like commercial subwoofers. They honestly really do. They've got a great finish, beautiful finish. They look smooth. There's no logos, so that's not distracting, and they pound.
Yeah.
They pound. So we went through the rack. We've got subwoofers. We've got acoustic treatments. We went through speakers. We went through the size of your room. Anything else we're missing?
Well, there's a few more things in the rack besides like the just random players and stuff. I do have, I recently got them. I hesitate to even say that. Let me put it this way: you don't need to buy a lot of amp power for your speakers necessarily. But I recently did, and I'm not one of those that comes on here and says now like I've made some sort of incredible improvement, because it hasn't been.
Yeah.
I bought Crown 8300N amps.
Okay.
And so every one of these speakers in here has the exact same power. It's 300 watts
Okay.
per speaker. And that's a good number for me,
that's
because
a lot.
at the distance that I'm at, when you calculate it out with SPL dropping per
Sure.
distance,
Okay.
300 is what I would need to have a little bit of room for EQ if I so chose to apply to still hit my 105 reference at this seat.
Sure.
So it gives me the ability to do anything I want with these speakers and know I'm not hitting my
Gotcha.
limits of SPL output. So if I was going to use a receiver, I might be losing a couple dB. Could I tell the difference between my Denon X6700 and these Crown amps that are quite a bit of expense? No, I can't tell the difference. If I did some compression plot sweeps, I probably could tell the difference, because the Denon would
Yeah, give-
nosedive a little bit earlier.
Sure.
It doesn't have quite the the capacity to
Right.
to run those hard. You're not gonna. I didn't. You're not gonna notice any sound difference between the two. So I think one of the Greenhorn mistakes, and I did it myself when I was younger in the hobby, is chasing after kind of audiophile amps and stuff. And I've done blind testing in that arena, and I have a pretty strong opinion on that. That if you're playing within your amps means, and you have competent amps,
Yeah.
you have the impedance right as far as matching and so forth, the amps are going to sound the same or they're broken.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. I know not everyone will agree with me, but that's my experience.
I agree. I've never heard differences in amps that I've reviewed, and sometimes I feel bad, because it's like, man, I should, or should I, but really the amplifier's job is to amplify the signal coming in. It shouldn't change that sound.
Or it's broken.
Yeah.
Or you got a tube amp that's intentionally colored.
Tube amps, yeah, they do have a native, different, like a warmer sound, and some people like to pair that with maybe a brighter sounding speaker, and that kind of combats that. So
I
I
just
could,
lost 50 subscribers.
yeah, I'm sorry guys, see ya. So true. One thing I love about you, Jonathan, is that, as you guys can tell, Jonathan knows, your stuff, dude. I mean, like, you're not just, randomly doing stuff. You're measuring, you're tweaking, you're reading up on the AVS form. And another thing that I'm super jealous of is y'all have this incredible community.
Great group.
Incredible community. And like today we had probably 15, 20 people over here. And they're helping each other. I mean, they're talking about it. They're learning what you've learned, and you're passing on the things that you've learned in your setup to these other guys and these new guys, and they're experiencing butt kickers for the first time, or near field subwoofers for the first time, or line array. And so by going to different, what y'all call a home theater crawl, just like an event, and they do this monthly. They go from your house, and then next month we'll be at such and such's house, and they just continue this.
Right.
And
It's been a lot of fun.
man, it's been a lot of fun, but you learn from each other.
Sure.
And I mean, even in this conversation here, I'm learning from you.
Sure.
Hanging out with you this past week, I'm learning about line arrays and what they're capable of, and the pluses and minuses of that. And then all these other home theater tours, I'm experiencing different things. I'm seeing things. I'm like, I want to go home and try that,
Right.
And
Everyone has these little positive perks you can pull from.
but they're all different. They're all unique, and that's why I love the home theater tours. And I hope you guys are enjoying them too. And I know these videos are longer, but I'm hoping you're gaining value. So definitely just let me know down in the comments, is this a format that you like? Is this beneficial? Are you learning? Are you inspired by setups like this and others that we've done on this tour? But I just love to get your feedback on that. So kind of maybe wrapping up, is there anything like that we didn't talk about? Maybe something that, is there anything that you would have changed in your home theater? Like if you could go back, and I know this didn't take overnight. I mean, you've been doing this for a long time, right?
Yeah. A lot of iterations of this, and I have that in my room thread. Kind of this cycle of learning myself. You know, couple takeaways. One is, we talked about this a little bit earlier. I don't think there's an objectively best speaker.
Yeah.
Personally speaking, I've participated in blind tests with speakers, and we talked about this, like I mentioned, with JTR and SOC, just for instance. Doesn't matter the name brand, it could be anything. We had a room full of 15 guys, very carefully set up.
Yeah.
I absolutely preferred one speaker out of that after listening to it. Like, got chills multiple times, didn't know what it even was. Speaker A gives me chills.
Yeah.
Track 237.
Sure.
Speaker B, no chills. don't like it.
Yeah, didn't
Speaker A.
emotionally kind of
Didn't connect.
charge you. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. We're all in the same room. We gotta all like the same speaker, right?
Sure.
This one's so much better.
This is a good speaker.
No, at the end when the reveal happened, we're all telling like what we liked or why we liked it. And it was like it wasn't a 50-50
It's all
split, but it was
different.
really close.
Yeah,
You
it's all
know,
different.
statistically insignificant. And I was like, well, that's eye-opening.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
interesting.
That this isn't there isn't some sort of like this is the theater, this
Right.
is the speaker, everyone copy it.
Yeah.
That's not how it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got people coming over here, you know, that like before this I had Mackie C200 speakers.
Right. Okay.
They're a $200 pro audio speaker.
Sure.
It was all matching as well.
Yep.
13 of them. I like matching audio.
I see that.
I had a buddy come over after I bought these, and these are significantly more expensive. And he's like, I like your Mackie better.
Yeah.
I said, all right, then you can buy the Mackies. I like these better. You know, I
And
didn't-
that's
I didn't sweat
okay.
it.
Yeah, that's okay. You shouldn't get offended that somebody doesn't like your sound, and maybe they like their sound better. That's
Sure.
cool.
Sure.
I can respect any, and you know, regardless of what speakers you choose to go with, whether it's Clips, whether it's Triad, whether it's JBL, whether it's Seaton, you know, go with something that you like, and that's really all that matters is that you are pleased, and when you sit down here with you and your family, and you're watching a movie or you're chilling with some music, you're just enjoying yourself.
Right.
And I think that's what home theater and that's what music listening is about. And this, I don't do a lot of music listening, but
Right.
after hearing like your setup and some other guys, I need to spend some more time listening to music because
Right.
there's some great stuff. Man, so that's pretty cool. So what
So
else?
I mean, I really feel like, and I want to kind of just finish up on that particular topic, and then we'll move on to what I would improve on.
Yeah.
I really feel like this is probably representing the end of my speaker journey. You can check back with me in 5 years and see if
Okay.
that's true.
Yeah, because he even told me, I said, you know, is there anything that you would add to? He's like, no, I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, I think I finally, and I've gone multiple iterations, right? I've been doing this since high school. I'm 42. Multiple iterations. Every iteration before this, I was kind of like, there's something I would,
Some kind of
there's
missing
something
or
I'm not,
tweaking.
yeah, something's not there. I'm missing something. I want something a little different.
Yeah.
This is the first time that and again, subjective, first time I've been, but like, this is it. I don't even want anything else. If I was to buy a new house today and build a brand new theater,
Right. Take
these
it all with
speakers
you.
are coming with
Yep.
me. These subs are coming with
That's
me.
awesome.
I'm
I
happy
would-
with it.
I was kind of hoping like you would go a different route and you'd donate this all to Youth Man. Because it's
Nice.
I'm serious, it's phenomenal. I
Right.
thoroughly. I'm gonna hate getting on a plane and going back home. I'll be honest with you.
Oh, and the other cool thing, and the journey of iterating through the speakers is fun too. So
Yeah.
don't get bogged down on that.
Absolutely.
You can buy it, especially if you do used, you can buy and sell and not lose much money and have a lot of experiences with it.
100%.
And if you're doing these little get-togethers with the groups, heck, you can hear a lot of stuff and not have to buy it.
That's
you
correct.
know, through people's houses. So another thing that's kind of fun is if you go to like a show like Expona,
Yeah.
which I went to a couple years, you can hear hundreds of speakers in one weekend.
Sure.
And get a feel for what you like.
Yeah.
You might like something completely different than what you even heard before.
Certainly.
And what's nice from that is when you get to a final place where you're happy, like where I've gone to Expo and I've listened to $800,000 speakers in a room.
Yeah,
right?
I have too.
Absurd price,
Yeah.
pricey out $300,000 subwoofers.
I know it.
Made out of aluminum blocks that weighs as
Yeah.
much as a small car.
Yeah.
I come home and I'm not like I'm happy. I'm
You're
like,
not envious. You're like, man,
I
oh, man,
don't feel like I'm missing a thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, for my years, to me, I'm happy with what I have, and I don't have any wanderlust anymore. So,
Yeah.
so that's a fun place to be.
I bet it's a great place for your wallet.
Yeah, yeah, it is a nice place for my wall finally.
Yeah.
Now things I do differently. There's plenty of those.
Yeah. Like what can we share with the audience that maybe help them in their journey? Some things that you would change, redo, and or maybe mistakes that you've done in building this.
Sure. So I think some of the mistakes correlate to some of the stuff we were talking about earlier about thinking there's an objective best. And we have a tendency, if a friend comes over or something and says like, oh, I don't like that so much, or I have this and it's better,
Yeah.
to kind of listen to that more than we should. It's really about what you like or what you enjoy.
Yeah.
And so I think in my earlier years, and even I've been on both sides of it. I've been kind of the one pointing the finger like, nah, it's not any good. And I've been the one on the receiving end saying
Yeah.
it's not any good. it doesn't really matter what your friend likes or doesn't like about your theater, or what your coworker or whatever says. If you enjoy
Or
it, just
somebody
stay.
on the internet.
Even worse, yeah.
Your system sucks and you never even heard it.
Right.
It's like this.
Right. Don't even give that the time of day. Don't think about that. Just enjoy what you enjoy.
Sure.
So that's one thing, because I swapped that entire amp set one time because somebody said they could hear buzz and I couldn't hear buzz. I couldn't even hear it, and it annoyed me in my head that somebody else said, I'm hearing buzz and that's not any good. And so I spent $1,000 or whatever,
Oh my
swapping
goodness.
an amp.
And it's something you couldn't even hear with your own ears.
No, and that's the epitome of stupid.
Yeah. but we
So-
live and learn.
Yeah. So yeah. Now I'm older. I realize that's dumb. So another thing I'd kind of do, like, we talked about this not being a dedicated space. We didn't build a house to build a theater. We bought a house and converted a room into a theater. I might have got a little rushed on maybe putting this up because I was excited to get it going. It had white tiles on the ceiling, the old just standard tiles, and every time that bass would hit, dust would fall down,
Yeah,
and
I've
it
seen
rattled
that.
like aluminum cans in an old car, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I got these Theater Black F tiles, and they don't make any sound. They're great, but I didn't take the time to try to realign the grid line or the lights. I just left them in place,
That'd be a lot of work.
and that's why I haven't done it yet. But I probably should, and I probably will. If we end up seeing this house, I probably will. Center the light so I don't have kind of a little off angle thing, and even though the room's asymmetrical, which is part of the reason I kind of just say, oh well,
Right.
it's just it is what it is for now. I could shore that up. So do it once, do it right.
That's great.
That's kind of the way it should be.
Well, I know it probably bothers you because I did a YouTube short just giving you a tease of this video. And he told me, he's like, man, can you like redo that video?
No, I didn't. I was totally saying that, but I did kind of think that.
But he was, and what it was in the video, I had to go back
towels
and watch
falling
it,
off.
and all these towels to kind of, keep our greasy heads off
Mm-hmm.
the thing. This one was like, it was a different
Cockeyed.
length or twisted, and so I could see how that would bother you. But again, it's not something you see.
No, when the lights are out, you don't even
Yeah, we're
notice.
watching the movie, man. So it's one of those things that, is it worth the effort to make that?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, someday if I move into a house and make a dedicated theater, if that works out, then
Yeah.
maybe I'll fix it then. Until then, I'll just enjoy what I have.
Exactly. Well, Jonathan, anything else that maybe we've missed? Everything?
No, man, it's been a pleasure having you here and visiting. And
Dude, I've had a blast. I mean, I truly, absolutely love home theater. I love the gear. I love all this stuff. But what I really value the most out of my journey with this and process of meeting new people is really the friendships and the relationships that we kind of develop and even just learning from each other.
Sure.
I do not have to be the smartest guy in the room.
Sure.
I actually don't want to be the smartest guy in the room, I like being the guy that is learning from other people, and I glean from that, and I value that.
Right.
I don't have to be the.
And your positivity is pretty remarkable.
I appreciate
I've seen
it.
this weekend, you're not getting any sleep. You're having a heck of a time.
Yeah.
And you're just.
I'm wide
you're
awake.
keeping up, but
It's almost 1 o'clock in the morning.
Getting 3 hours of sleep a night.
Yeah.
Running hard.
But I love it though. I love it. I truly love this. And like I said, guys, I know this is a totally different style of video for my channel, but I'm hoping you get value out of this. So definitely let me know. We've got another three home theater tours tomorrow.
Right.
Kind of early, so we probably ought to get to bed. So hang tight, guys. As soon as I get back to Florida, I'll be editing these videos and getting them uploaded to the channel. And so if you like these videos and if you find value in my content, I'd love for you to subscribe to the channel. I'll post a link down in the description, maybe to like your build thread if you're interested in that, as well as just a list of his equipment and things like that if you're kind of interested in some of this stuff. And
Sure. And if you're in Kansas City and you want a theater demo of this spot, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah.
So, look me up on AVS forum, send me a private message, and
Okay.
I'll demo it out.
Dude, that's an invitation from the man. This place is phenomenal. Well, guys, I hope you have a great week. God bless you, and we'll catch you in the next video.